Browns head coach search is taking another major turn. There will not be a head coach in Cleveland yet this week. Some major breaking NFL news. I'll tell you how this impacts the Cleveland Browns coming up on today's show. But make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out, because Cleveland, they're looking for a new leader of this football team. And there's rumors, news every single day for the Cleveland Brownies. So we're so close to 70,000. What a milestone that would be. You guys are the best. It's totally free to hit that subscribe button. And like I said, I'll make daily videos for you guys about the dog pound. So if you're a diehard Browns fan, join the channel, join the family right now. And let's talk about the breaking news that we got this morning, okay, over in Buffalo. Shocking to many. Ian Rappaport says the Bills are moving on from Coach Sean McDermott after their loss in the divisional round to the Broncos, per the insiders. Now, I watched that whole game, and, Allen had some costly turnovers. And it was a shootout, went to overtime. How much are we blaming McDermott for that? I don't know. But Buffalo, fact of the matter is, they haven't won a Super Bowl there with Allen, and they're making a quite the change here. Adam Schefter adds on, though, and this is where Cleveland fans could revel in this. Former Bills head coach Sean McDermott could well emerge as a head coaching candidate for some teams now that they have an opening. McDermott told his staff today that he intends to continue coaching. He's not done. He wants to get back into this mix and go compete right away. And let me say, this is another quote-unquote wild firing in the NFL this year. I mean, Harbaugh getting fired, Tomlin stepping down. What is going on? Sean McDermott, all of a sudden, who has a winning record as a head coach as well, is getting fired. It's not just a winning record, folks. Well, the Bills were the second winningest team in the NFL during Sean McDermott's tenure. But like I said, no Super Bowl, and that's what I think it ultimately came down to for the Bills in this decision. But when you look at his tenure over there, the guy's got a regular season record of 98-50. Okay, I'm not kidding when I said second winningest. Sounds pretty good to Cleveland, doesn't it? 5 AFC East titles, 2 AFC title game appearances, 1 game away from the Super Bowl, 2 separate occasions, but they could never get it done, losing to Mahomes and company over there a couple times as well. 8 playoff appearances, but I think this is also what led to McDermott's fire, and that's that the playoff record is exactly 500. 8-8. You can't capitalize on having Josh Allen, but he is a good leader, all right? He is defensive-minded, so keep that in mind when you think about him as a Browns head coach candidate. But look at all the head coach openings across the National Football League now. I mean, we've had 10 total this season, folks. 10 total. Now, the Giants and Falcons have obviously filled theirs. Harbaugh and our old friend Kevin Stefanski. We'll talk about him a little bit on today's show. But out of the available options, like Schefter says, I think McDermott is going to be a candidate for a lot of these teams. And I'll tell you what, that Bills job is pretty attractive, as is the Ravens job. 2 MVP quarterbacks here needing a head coach. But let's look at Sean McDermott as a candidate for the Cleveland Browns. Okay, his career record with the playoffs, 105-57. I mean, it's still nearly a 65% win percentage, folks. Okay, we don't have a coach that does that. We haven't had a coach that does that in probably our franchise history. All right? Carolina Panthers defensive coordinator from 2011 to 2016. What I like about McDermott is, to this point, you get stability with him. All right? Teams want to keep him around. Half a decade in Carolina. All right, more than that, as the Bills head coach. Stability, winning. I guess in the current NFL, that's not a whole lot, as Harbaugh got fired too, But McDermott absolutely should be a top candidate on people's boards. I think just as a leader, as a guy who's had success, who's been to the playoffs, right? I mean, we need that sort of winning culture here in Cleveland. Similar arguments that I'd give for Harbaugh, and now Harbaugh's a different story. I mean, that's just the type of candidate that doesn't open up a lot. Congrats to the Giants. But McDermott, one of the longest tenured head coaches until this point, being fired. Now, here's the deal. Because of that defensive background I just showed you, you need him to bring in an offensive coordinator, a new one, an innovative one, okay? Tommy Rees, I don't think will be back in Cleveland next year. We'll talk about that in the future. But you're going to have to bring one of those top guys like a Mike McDaniel who's on the market, someone who could really excel as an OC, and then McDermott is a leader who knows the defense. If he would keep Jim Schwartz, that would be phenomenal. I mean, come on. You tell me we could get some McDermott, McDaniel, and Schwartz? That's a heck of a coaching staff. That's going to turn things around in Cleveland. Because I do think the Browns are telling teams they want to keep Schwartz. Now, McDermott's probably the type of guy that, since he wants to get back into coaching, he'll be able to have a lot of options and a lot of say on who is on his staff. But in an ideal world, He brings an OC, and we keep Schwartz, and that would be good to me. And Mary Kay tells us that the Browns have liked him in the past. All right, even though this is a shocker to her and to all of us. She says the Browns have liked McDermott for a little while now, and so I do see the Browns giving him a call. All right, this adds to the coaching search, and Cleveland can't make a hiring yet still. They still have to complete the Rooney Rule, and so this coaching search is going to go on for another week, 2 weeks probably, Browns fans. More likely 2 weeks. I'm going to have you covered for it. But let me know in the comment section what you think about Sean McDermott as a candidate. Now that this is a possibility, you tell me. Should the Browns go after him? Type Y for yes, type N for no in that comment section down below. Let me know where your head's at, Browns fans, as a new candidate opens up again for the Cleveland Browns in this wild coaching cycle, this carousel. I think 10 head coach openings total is like some of the most in history, all right? Tied with a couple other years in the past. But let me know if Sean McDermott is on your board all of a sudden. Now, here's a more likely scenario. We got to talk about Joe Brady. After that loss, I mean, he's going to be interviewing. He's a candidate that we've talked about before on the show. So let's get into that. But first, special shout-out to our friends over at PrizePicks. The big game is almost here, and there's no better way to cash in during America's biggest sporting event than PrizePicks, where it always feels good to be right. And since the big game is right around the corner, that also means it's your last chance to get into the football action before next season. So close out the season right with PrizePicks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. I love this app. It's a lot of fun. I've been crushing it with the more on quarterbacks passing touchdowns this playoffs, and I can't watch my favorite team anymore for a while. You guys know this. So I need a way to stay entertained during the games, have something to root for. And missing your fantasy team? My league's already over, but with PrizePicks, I don't have to wait until next year's draft to keep playing fantasy. PrizePicks lets you play fantasy football every week, even in the playoffs. Pick your favorite players and win when they hit their projections. Every week, no draft required. Join millions of users and sign up for America's #1 sports picks app. Here's my lineup going into Championship Sunday. Drake May, more than 199.5 passing yards. Cooper Kupp, I'm going to go more than 1.5 receptions. I think he'll get 2. And finally, Devontae Adams, more than 3.5 receptions. You can make a lineup just like that if you download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it is good to be right. Sean McDermott might want to bring his boy, Joe Brady. Like I said, we need him to bring an OC because of his defensive background, if this is going to be a Cleveland Browns hire. Well, maybe he says, let's go run this back over in Cleveland. Doesn't sound very enticing when you were just in Buffalo with Josh Allen. I get it. But if Cleveland decides to hire him and he agrees, maybe Joe Brady will be the guy he brings. So what's more likely, though? I think it's more likely that the Browns will interview Joe Brady and say, we'll give you a head coaching job if they really like what they hear. And they wouldn't be the only team doing this. Joe Brady is already being interviewed by the Ravens, our rivals, by the Dolphins, also the Raiders, I should say. Also some interesting spots that Raiders are pretty awful, but the Miami Dolphins is a pretty attractive job to some just because of the climate. So consider this for the Cleveland Browns and the competition that they might have. But Joe Brady's a guy that's getting looks. So I imagine the Browns are going to make a phone call. You know, Mary Kay had reported before that they might call up Joe Brady when he becomes available. And when you look at what Josh Allen has done in his tenure in Buffalo, I mean, what more can you say about the MVP, right? He's had multiple 4,000-plus yard seasons, 25 touchdowns to 10 picks this year, nearly 70% completion percentage. I mean, what else can you say about what Josh Allen has done? And then the emergence of James Cook under Joe Brady this year. 1,600 yards rushing, average 5.2 per carry. I mean, 12 rushing touchdowns, touchdown machine this year. It's been phenomenal. All right? I mean, what do you think Joe Brady could do with Quinshon Judkins? Could he open things up for this Browns offense finally, once and for all? Now, he has gotten some criticism in years past for his play calling, but Joe Brady's only 36 years old. So he's a young offensive mind, okay, worked with some of the best, been at the hip of Sean McDermott. I think he's a decent candidate. I liked him a lot when we were talking about early Stefanski rumors, but as things have developed, I think Cleveland's more enticed by the young, and he's young, but even younger offensive candidates that they are already going to interview. So, like I said, Brady gets some criticism for his play calls. You know, sometimes they're like, you're not getting your best players involved enough. Where's Kincaid? Where's Cook? But when you look at the stats as a whole, I mean, Cook's had his best season ever, a career high in attempts, rushing as well. The real thing is, the fact of the matter, those two together just couldn't make it to the Super Bowl with Josh Allen. And that's Buffalo's standards when you have that kind of quarterback, okay? Cleveland standards are a little different. We're just trying to make the playoffs. And I'll tell you what, this could be said for Stefanski. I don't think Stefanski's a Super Bowl winning coach. It's part of the reason I'm out on him. You will not win a Super Bowl with Kevin Stefanski. And good luck over there in Atlanta with Michael Penix. He's awful. Been awful. You can't make him a starting quarterback anymore in the league. Too many injuries now as well for Penix. So when Stefanski had Baker, Odell, Landry, Chubb, Hunt, one playoff win in his entire career, that's how you get fired in the league. You can't make the big game with talent on offense. And that's what happened to the Bills. So I'll tell you what. I'd take McDermott just because of his success or just because of his, winning culture, his tenure. His regular season record's phenomenal, as I showed you guys. I'd interview Joe Brady for his offensive prowess, see if he says the right thing, see if Cleveland likes him. I don't know if I'd love it, though. Because like I said, they didn't win the big game with all that over there in Buffalo. And I do think the GM's a bigger issue, okay? Buffalo should have prioritized getting receivers. Since Diggs left, what have they done to help out Josh Allen weapons-wise? Yet they're essentially promoting Brandon Beane, their GM. So I think Buffalo's kind of messing it up in the front office perspective. That's why I would still take McDermott. And I'd interview Joe Brady. What do you think in the comment section, though? We've talked about Joe Brady a decent amount on this show. Would you hire him as a head coach? Comment down below. Let me know your thoughts in that comment section. And while you're down there, find some of my social links. Give me a follow on Twitter, JoeyO70. Love to chop it up on there. Or also on Instagram, Brown Support IG and TikTok. Joey O. Brown, plenty of fun highlights and short-form content across all these platforms, so don't miss out on those. And I tweet every day about the Browns. If you're a diehard Browns fan, join the channel. Hit that subscribe button. Appreciate you all being here with me. I'll keep you updated on this ongoing head coach search. We'll see you next time.